I've shared the pain of families who've lost their homes and the frustration of workers who've lost their jobs. If the critics are right that I've made all my decisions based on polls, then I must not be very good at reading them. And while I'm very proud of what we've achieved together, I'm far more mindful of my own failings, knowing exactly what Lincoln meant when he said, "I have been driven to my knees many times by the overwhelming conviction that I had no place else to go."
Of course, had to convince voters to give him 4 more years, and he had to inspire people at the same time. Neil King joins us from Washington. Neil, how'd he do? What do you think?
I thought he did well. I thought it was a workmanly speech. You know, this was his 3rd speech in a row before a national convention like this, 2004, 2008. I think this was the lesser of the 3 in some ways, but indicative of the fact that he's obviously now a president. He served for almost 4 years. It was much more policy-oriented than I would have thought to be the case. It was almost like a State of the Union address. It wasn't nearly the kind of big, sweeping, soaring rhetoric that certainly we've seen from him in the past, and obviously that was intentional. The passage that you just aired, I thought was one of the more interesting ones, where he admitted to his failings, and a lot of the theme throughout the speech was basically asking for forgiveness in another 4 years to move where he wants to get the country.
And it's interesting, we have another clip that we want to roll for people where he actually he cited Lincoln, and it was almost a subdued moment. I want to play that for everyone now. Oh, we did. We heard that moments ago. I apologize. But Neil, tell me, what other themes for you really stuck out for this speech?
Well, I mean, he had one particular good attack line, which was the whole bit about, all the Republicans have to offer is tax cuts, and, the whole line about, you got a cold, take 2 tax cuts, cut some regulations, and call me in the morning. It was a pretty good passage. It sort of picked up on some of what Bill Clinton had done 2 nights, or the night before. And there were some zinger moments like that, but otherwise, to me, it was fascinating. He went into education pretty in depth. He went into foreign policy. He talked about energy and global warming. That in itself was sort of surprising to me. How issue-based it was in that way. There weren't a lot of lines that sort of stood out, though it certainly jazzed the crowd. The other thing that struck me was how much he talked to the room in a very different way than what Michelle had done when she gave her big speech, where she talked very much into the camera, really talking to the American people, sort of one-on-one about her husband. And Obama decided, for whatever reason, to more talk to his party, talk to the forum itself, rarely looking straight into the camera, and I'm not sure if that was necessarily a good decision.
I'm curious, did he really close the sale for independent voters who are so important to him?
I'm not sure. I think that if there's a bump coming out of this convention, I think it will be the Clinton bump. Maybe it will be the Michelle and Bill bump. I think those were definitely the highlights of this convention for the Democrats. Bill Clinton did the most interesting, certainly the most long, prolonged attempt at sort of eviscerating the Republican side, but doing it in a pretty, with a smile. So whether Obama closed the deal with independents, I kind of doubt whether he was the one to move a lot of numbers necessarily. It's interesting, we now going forward, I mean, this is one of the last few moments when you can say that there's a kind of molten quality where things are formable and movable. Now I think we go more into a kind of freeze mode for a while, where we're not likely to see big abilities to move, no matter how much money is going to be poured into some of these states, and there's going to be a lot of it. And then, of course, the next big moment is the debate early next month.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second. I'm curious, how did Republicans, how did Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan react to this?
Well, I mean, they came out, they had their pre-buttals, and their statements were basically, yeah, we've heard it all before. Here's a person who's just asking for another 4 years to continue doing what he's already doing. Is that really what the American people want? Where's his plan? There was a lot of talk about, well, exactly what is his plan to turn the economy around? I mean, I have to say there wasn't necessarily a clear plan per se, nor was there necessarily a clear plan put forward when Mitt Romney gave his speech in Tampa. Both of the campaigns, in a way, are built around a certain message of fear about the other side, with Romney saying, you know, you should be fearful of 4 more years of President Obama, and of course Obama's main message saying, do you really want to go back to the way things were run under George Bush, and that's what these guys would do if you elected Mitt Romney.
I got to say, I love pre-buttal. I've never heard that before. And I want to ask, just quickly, a curious question. Hillary Clinton, of course, has been on an Asia tour. Why wasn't she at this convention? Just speculate a little for us.
Well, I mean, in a way, she was somewhat, to the extent that she was brought up, and Bill Clinton, of course, brought up his wife and the fact that she was in Asia. You know, secretaries of state, there are a couple of cabinet people who just don't do politics. One of them is the Treasury Secretary, the other is the Secretary of State. You know, she is so that's the reason. She's an incredibly political person, but she's not going to show up at a political event.
Okay. And of course, you mentioned the debates, and that really is the next thing to look for voters. Of course, we weren't probably very surprised by anything we got out of these very scripted conventions. And here we have the schedule for presidential debates starting in early October. Of course, there's also the one vice presidential debate. Neil, what should voters look forward to in those?
Well, I mean, this is going to be the first time, particularly for most voters, to see Mitt Romney in an unscripted, just there on the screen, engaging one-on-one with the president. And it's just no way to really overstate the significance of that moment, particularly the first debate for Romney. And if Romney goes out, if he shows that he's got chops, if he shows that, you know, he can be trusted with all the duties that a presidency entails, it could be a big thing for him. I think it has much more upside for him than it does for President Obama, who, of course, is so well known. And for all the talk of Obama being a great speaker, I think a lot of people wonder whether he's necessarily the best kind of one-on-one debater. It's also the fact that he hasn't debated for quite some time, while Mitt Romney actually held his own pretty well through there was something like 26 primary debates, so he's in good training at the moment.
And we should mention, of course, we got 2 Harvard lawyers who will be litigating their case during those debates. Neil, thank you so much for joining us this morning.